Hey guys, LevelCap here. Today is Monday, which means it's time for an episode of Loadout, the series where you guys, the viewers, get to pick a gun and customization for me to use. The way you do this is you leave a comment down below letting me know what kind of weapons and accessories you'd like me to use in Battlefield 4, and I will pick one of the top rated comments. Today's top comment comes from Support Guy and his M249. Now there was actually several comments asking me to do a Rick Grimes loadout from The Walking Dead. The season 6 finale is coming up, or technically I think is aired by this point. I'm not sure, I'll have to check the show times, but if you've been keeping up with Walking Dead, it's pretty brutal this season. Lots of killing, lots of gunfights. And of course, the first aspect of this loadout is the classic 44 Magnum, because the 357 isn't in the game. We're also going to be running the primary RPK, since none of the other AKs in the game look like the AK-47. This one's got that classic Woodstock feel. Gadget 1 will be the ammo box, because the TV show characters never seem to really run out of ammo. There's not going to be any secondary gadget. We'll be using flashbangs because they use them at Woodbury. His knife is the machete, of course. Field upgrade will be any. And then he says, survive the zombie apocalypse as Rick Grimes. Just run around the battlefield doing stuff and things and make sure you kill all the saviors. Rick Grimes for the win. And I too have to admit that I'm a bit of a Rick Grimes fan. Will be watching the season finale, and playing here on Operation Locker certainly reminds me of when the crew had their prison complex as sort of a defensive location where they grew crops and defended the prison. And although I don't want to give away any spoilers as to what happened in that situation, let's just say things got intense, as they often do in Operation Locker. Now the RPK-74M is a cool gun. It's one of the few weapons in Battlefield that's got that classic look to it. Battlefield 3 had a lot more of the classic Woodstock weapons. Battlefield 4 kind of upgraded to the more modern versions of the AKs, but there was enough of a demand for the classic looking guns that they threw the RPK Classic in there, and it's awesome. I kind of hope that they would throw a classic AK in there as well, but I don't think they're adding anything else to Battlefield 4, so we can only hold out hope for Battlefield 5. Now luckily this weapon has fairly low recoil, so I don't really need a lot of attachments to try and help manage this weapon. Sure, the iron sights aren't going to hold up to your standard red dot sight in Battlefield, but they do have that classic look to them. It's just a little bit more difficult to be precise, and also when you have iron sights on most weapons, especially this weapon here, you've got the entire gun body right below the center crosshair, so it becomes trickier to track targets, especially if you're going for those headshots. You're basically obscuring most of the target that you're shooting for, which is just kind of the problem with iron sights in any first-person shooter, and why red dot sights are really just superior in general, because you can have the floating dot out there rather than being attached to the gun body itself. That being said, a lot of the classic AK platforms weren't originally designed with the intention of being used with red dot sights, and only later got the upgraded rail systems that are kind of attachments anyway. They're add-ons, where the modern M4s and N16s come with rail systems built into them. The modern AKs do as well, but the classic AKs didn't have those, so you kind of had to do a little bit of trickery to actually get red dot sights onto them. Now, what are the benefits of the RPK-74M? Especially considering that we're using it naked, we're really going to have to get every little bit we can out of this gun to be competitive. Well, it's got a 40-round magazine, which is nice. It means you can take down multiple targets before you need to reload. Gives you a little bit more reload freedom. However, it does have a very slow rate of fire, so you have to be absolutely as tactical as possible with this weapon to ensure that you start shooting at your opponent first. You're being sneaky beaky, you're going for those headshots, and you're being accurate. Luckily, the weapon has very low recoil, so if you're an accurate shot, chances are you can land most of your shots on target and hopefully drop your opponent before they drop you. It's a highly effective weapon at range, again because of that low recoil, but also because you got that ammo box, you have a large magazine, you can spam a lot of fire at those further ranges, which is something that you might not want to do with some of your less effective weapons. You want to conserve your ammo until you get in close quarters where they're more effective, but since you don't have that ammo problem with this class, you can spam fire all you want and get those extra kills at further ranges. It is something to consider when running the support class in general, and especially when you have a nice accurate LMG like the RPK. Now, if I were to modify this setup, I think I might just start off by putting an optic on there. I don't know how many attachments this weapon actually needs to be effective. It's got extremely low first shot recoil, which means you can tap fire this weapon and if you start putting on other attachments there, you start to reduce the ability of this gun to tap fire, and that'll ultimately reduce your effectiveness at range, provided that you do like the tap firing technique. If you don't like the tap firing technique, you might be better suited with the RPK-12, which has a slightly larger magazine. It just has slightly higher first shot recoil, so that one works a little bit more effectively than this gun when just using in full auto and longer bursts. Now you'll notice I'm running the defensive perk here. I really don't think there's a lot of other options for the support class, and defensive perk is so good for reducing that chest shot damage. It's just incredibly useful. If you can survive an extra round, it means you're gonna survive a lot of firefights that come down to the wire. You have as much ammo as you need, so you're not going to need any sort of perks that give you extra ammunition either. And especially with a long-range weapon, you're not going to need the speed as much. You can usually hang out in buildings or in covered areas and just shoot from afar. You don't have to push the objective as much with this class. In addition to that, if you are pushing the objective, you're going to start running into people with much higher rate of fire weapons that can out DPS you regardless of how good your aim is. So going up close and personal with this class is putting yourself at a disadvantage. Yeah, sure, if you're a really good player, you can probably do fairly well regardless of what gun you're running. It's just about advantages and disadvantages, and if you want to do better, you're going to play to your weapon's strengths. Now, as much as I love the 44 Magnum in this game, I didn't use it too much since I've got a 40 round magazine. It's a slow firing weapon. I didn't run into too many situations where I had to quickly switch to a sidearm. The 44 Magnum is a lot of fun though, and especially getting those headshots in close quarters, just one-shotting people down is always fun and entertaining. Now, does the AK platform make a lot of sense in the world of Walking Dead? Well, in terms of reliability, absolutely. The AK-47, the RPK, any sort of AK style gun, it's going to be extremely reliable because of the system design. It's a fairly clean running system overall, and even if you do get a lot of dirt in the gun, it's really not going to affect the performance too bad. I mean, the AK is notorious for being one of the most reliable platforms in the world, which is great in a post-apocalyptic environment where you don't have a lot of time to sit down and meticulously clean your weapon, or perhaps you get stuck in just bad situations where it's raining and muddy and grimy, and again, you're on the run, don't have time to clean up to get your gun operating and functioning as best as possible. The AK is perfect for that scenario. The downside, of course, is finding ammunition for the weapon. If you're scrounging ammo from the US military or police stations, chances are they're going to have 5.56 and 2.23 style rounds, which will not work in your AK. And unless you just stumble across somebody who's an AK aficionado and has a lot of ammunition for it, you're probably not going to find it in too many places other than gun shops. And even then, you're probably going to find still a lot more 2.23, 5.56 style ammunition around. So in terms of just the availability of ammo, the AK doesn't make a huge amount of sense. That being said, I still totally think it's awesome that Rick runs with an AK. And sure, maybe he did find an awesome stash of ammo and he's going to use his AK until he runs out of it. Otherwise, that pretty much wraps it up for this episode of Loadout. If you're watching Walking Dead, enjoy the finale, and I'll see you next time. This is LevelCap signing off.